Good evening. I would like to call the Union County Board of Education, May 2nd, 2017, 4 o'clock Board of Education call board meeting. I'd like to welcome all visitors and guests. First, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd also, next time, I'd like to get approval for the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, next item is I have a statement that I would like to read. Budget input session, Union County Board of Education. The purpose of the budget input session is to gain suggestions and feedback from the public concerning the proposed year 2018 budget for the Union County Board of Education. Board members are not required to answer questions or debate the issues. The board as a whole will listen, record, and consider your input during the budget formulation process. This process is scheduled for 1 hour. We ask that you, number one, be respectful and professional. Number two, refrain from arguing or debating. Number three, limit time to 3 minutes per speaker if possible. Number four, provide only input that will be beneficial to the budget process. And number five, refrain from referencing individual employee and or student names and or personal / confidential information. First, the next item on the agenda is budget highlights. Dr. Rayfield and Ms. Danke.
Certainly want to thank all the folks that are here to join us for the first of 2 input sessions. We're going to share with you some overview information of the FY18 budget process. Several of these points were shared at our last monthly board meeting during the work session to begin to orient the board into the increases in the budget, the increased expenditures, and the things that we were going to be facing with putting this year's budget together for them. After we finish going over the basic information about the budget and maybe highlighting some things for you, then we will open the floor. Hopefully we can do that. If you want to, please do that individually to share your input and your feedback into this process. I think that the legislature passed this legislation and developed this process whereby you could come and share those suggestions with us prior to the formulation and the adoption process. And the tentative budget has not even been placed on the table yet. It will be placed on the table at the monthly May meeting, and it will again sit another 30 days until the June meeting in which it is formally adopted. So there are 2 of these sessions that will be offered, one today and one on May the 16th to offer public input into the budget. I think it's important that we differentiate between the general fund and what we call the E-SPLOST, because they are 2 separate mechanisms. Okay, E-SPLOST is very specific. It can only be used for certain things that are in the referendum. It's generated by a 5-year collection period. What we operate schools out of on a day-to-day basis is what we would refer to as the general fund. So the majority of the budget that is built every year is built for the general fund. It's not built for E-SPLOST. E-SPLOST is a separate project whereby the board goes through a project setting process. They pick the projects, they determine the amount of revenue that will be generated through the E-SPLOST, and then they carry the projects out, hopefully during that 5-year period. And the general fund is what we operate off of, and that's the budget that you'll see advertised in the paper in its entirety, and you'll see it on the table from now until the middle of June. Just a point on revenue, and I think finally this pie chart got back in a situation where we wanted it to be rather than where it was a few years ago. You notice that 49% comes from local tax revenue, 48% comes from state QBE. those numbers got really out of whack in a lot of places a few years ago. And the local tax number went out the roof, and the state's contribution went in the downward direction. Now we are starting to see that equalize just a little bit on the state level. They are putting more money back in to the quality basic education formula. And that has not been the case for the past 7 to 8 years. And so we're seeing those numbers come back closer together, which is what we would like to see. There were many places that were working toward a 60-40, with 60 on the local and 40 on the state. And that's not a good situation to be in when you're working in education in that system, nor as a taxpayer in that system. And you have another couple of small slivers here. We get some money from TVA in lieu of taxes, and we also get some other state tax contributions. But the majority of the money comes from our state allotment sheet, which we earn off our student count and our local ad valorem taxes. Here are just a couple of notes. If you look at our budget, and Barbara and I talked about this again yesterday and today, if you look at our budget sheet, this is one of those years that there's really not anything substantial in terms of a dramatic change to talk about, okay? And dramatic change has been happening over the past 7 to 8 years, but this year is fairly stable, if you want to call it that. You'll see that our revenue increased on the state QBE sheet from FY17 to this coming budget in 18. That increase is attributed to one thing. They sent us the money to pay for the pay raise that they proposed and voted on in the legislature for educators, and they sent us the money to offset the increase in the employer contribution of teacher retirement. They voted those in the legislative budget. When that budget signed, that money dropped into our allotment sheet. That has not been the case for many, many years. They have voted some increases, but they have passed that on to the local and said, deal with it the best way that you know how. This year, that money is included in our allotment sheet, and that's why you see that 49 and 48% coming more closely together. We're budgeting the same amount for property taxes coming in as we did in FY17. If you know anything about our process, we don't have the final digest, tax digest, to work off of before our budget is due in Atlanta by June 30th. We always have to estimate. We get a good report back from the tax commissioner's office, but we don't have a final number, nor do we have a final digest to work off of. And trust me, we've pleaded with the state to align those deadlines a little more closely so we could have an accurate number, but that has not happened. So we always budget conservatively on that with no increases. Federal revenue and budgeting, probably the same number, but again, if you know what's happening in Washington, all of that, a lot of that's in a holding pattern right now, to be honest with you. And we will probably see some reductions in some categories, and you may see some new categories created. I know one in the works for money for technology coming in the Title I federal allotments, which probably will just be taken from another pot of money, reduce that one and add it to this one. But we're not making any promises on federal funding for this go around, because we know that everything is very much in limbo until they get their budgetary process straightened out. Okay. Here's our expenditures. It's this way in every school system in the country. I mean, it's this way in a lot of organizations, to be quite honest with you. Salaries and benefits amount to 87% of our budget. So that leaves us with a whopping 13% to deal with operations. Okay? And that is not a tremendous amount of money that we have a lot of jurisdiction over. A lot of that 13% is committed to certain categories, utility bills, things like that. So that money's already spoken for as well. We know that the major cost of operating our schools is making sure that we've got quality teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, lunchroom workers, and with those positions comes insurance and retirement. And those costs are both on the employer and the employee side. And what we have seen there is this total number, maybe not the percentage, but that total dollar amount on the benefits piece of the pie, especially from a health insurance standpoint, continues to do this. But if you look out into many parts of our country, that health insurance piece is continuing to grow for everybody that's seeking that kind of coverage. Okay? Expenditure notes, we got some increases. We've already talked about that one. Salary step increases we have to give. We also have to do the 2% state mandated raise for all the certificated folks. Those things are passed through the legislature down onto us. We got the money for it this time. The local contribution to that will be our non-certificated folks, our custodians, lunchroom, folks that are not certificated. We're going to make sure that they get the 2% adjustment as well. Teacher retirement increased to 16.81%. That's one of the biggest jumps on the employer side of that contribution that we've seen in a while. Health insurance, again, up on the classified or non-certificated side. We have already crossed, or getting close to crossing the threshold of paying more in health insurance premium to some of our employees than we actually pay to them in salary. And then we have an additional SRO salary position that was formerly paid by the county that has been transferred to our budget. Here is the what I would call the summary of revenues and expenditures. You see where a lot of those revenues are generated from the different taxes. You've got the ad valorem taxes. You've got TAVT, the way that they're sending us the funds on what used to be the car tax by a new calculation. SFS, those three categories are school food service. Barbara and I would both tell you those are both independent. Those are all independent entities. We can't commingle that money with anything else. That's to be for school food service and the federal school nutrition program. QBE was the allotment sheet that we talked about. Then you see federal grants, state grants, and then you see SPLOSH broken out as a separate category. And then you see how the expenditures break out. Actually, last year, there was a budget adopted that was over into the reserves quite a bit. This year, our projected budget looks to be $29,000 to the good. So we're not going into the red to balance the budget, and we're able to fulfill what the legislature set forth as what the raises would be for teachers and what the increases in benefits would be. And that's been, quite honestly, the biggest hurdle for us. So there's not a lot of change as far as we're concerned in the categorical spending. We've actually saved money in combining some positions and downsizing some things in the past 12 months to get us closer to a balanced budget, which I and Barbara certainly we both feel good about.
Next, we're ready for public input and recommendations. Who would like to start? Ms. Thibodeau?
I'll start. And this is from the Georgia Department of Education website. In fiscal year 2016, Union County spent $11,006.53 per full-time enrolled student. This is 22% over the state average. And that number does not include the food service, which is approximately, breaks down to $625 per student. This is a lot of money. And one of the things that's really stuck out to me was maintenance and operations, which this shows maintenance and operations of $3,279,647. And that would not be with a full year of the Fine Arts Center online and with the Ag Center online. Certainly, and now you've got only $3,041,000 or $3,041,000 for maintenance and operations for next year, and you've got the added expense of the Ag Center and the Fine Arts Center. So there's something very, and the maintenance and operation on an average for the state is $730 per student, and ours was $1,218. So I know you are not compelled to answer questions at this session, but I can assure you that taxpayers would like to know why.
Thank you, Mrs. Thibodeau. We definitely made a note. Yes, sir.
Our ability to open this up to the community for input and for just pure knowledge of what the school budget is going to be and the actions and whatever is scheduled at a time when most of the people who are contributing to this activity through their taxes could not possibly attend this meeting because, gee whiz, they're working. And I really think it is just a personal opinion and the opinion of a lot of people I talk to, that things of this nature, although subject to disruption and control, should really be available for the people who have children in school and also are working, so that they can also be a participant in the process.
Our next session is at 6. We have to have 2 of these.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you do. But I'm still saying all sessions should be at 7.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I say that is because people, you know, got to get kids home from school or got to get home from work themselves or got to do this and that, and 7 o'clock is usually about the time they can either kick back or come in. So I really encourage you for all your activities with the school board to consider that in the future. Because it really, the population doesn't like it. I can tell you that. I'm not just speaking for myself. I can be here at 6 in the morning or 10 in the evening, but most of the population are constrained by their other responsibilities. And they would like to have an input in this. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to follow up a little bit on Pat's comments or questions around some of the new facilities that are here. I drive past the Ag Center most frequently, and I don't see any activity there at all. Very, very little. I know monthly the meeting is there for the kids, those that are participating. And I guess taking this back to the 2018 budget, I would like to know what portion of operating expense maintenance is in fact dedicated to the Ag Center. Do we have people that are on staff full time? how many kids are associated with that program. I guess my expectation when I saw it going up, and I thought, gee, this is really an excellent opportunity for this county and the students of this county. I sort of expected to see those students that were following more of an ag career, their classes there'd be many classes there. There'd be students in and out of that center all day long. And we would see animals and crops or whatever the program really centers around. So I've been, as a taxpayer, I've been very surprised to find that there is no activity there, very, very little. I mean, I saw the EMC trucks that looked like they gathered there to prep for their assignments for the day. I did see a white truck parked in the back, I think it was one morning or one afternoon for a period of time. But other than that, there was no life around it. What salaries are allocated to that center that sits empty? What is the plan for that center? It's very nice. And I really had high hopes that this did bring sort of a skill-based training to our school system. And not only me, I think there are others in the community that would like to understand what is the plan for that, and why are we seeing no activity around that center day in and day out? And what dollars in our 2018 budget are allocated to the no activity? I mean, that to me is something that we really need to question very pointedly.
Thank you.
Can I just briefly comment?
Please do.
There will be a ton of information presented in response to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you drive by there every day. I actually make 2 trips there every day.
I probably make more than that, unfortunately. I'm retired, so.
There are classes being held out there. There are events being held out there. People are renting the facility and booking the facility. And the cattle barn on top of the hill that was built for kids with projects is totally full. The animals in that facility their gates stay closed during the daytime, and they're let out in the evenings. The hogs, you would never see them from the road. They're in the back of the building in an enclosed climate control part. And it was full. We ran out of pens this year.
Is there another access road in? Because there's never a car parked there, a school bus parked there, or anything. That's why, I mean, it certainly leads me to believe that there's not much, if any, activity that goes on there. And why would we build a facility to lease it out to other groups if we don't have enough utilization to have it full and busy all the time with our students? It was built for our students. So, I mean, that I would also question why we would have the expenditure for the facility only to rent it out to other groups.
Is there a,
We make all of our facilities available to other groups when we're not using them for instruction, if we can possibly accommodate them with a minimal charge. So
is there another access road to it that
No, ma'am.
where people are parking? And
No, ma'am.
why do we see no vehicles and I see no one walking around? If it's that full, and I'm there before daylight, after dark, all through the day, I just weekends, weekdays. It just doesn't make sense to me as why I never see anyone there. So I'll just put that on the table. But
Yes, sir.
is it possible in the discussion of that facility and as well as the other one that's in question to show how much it is standing on its own as a result of the outside activity? Because quite frankly, if it's paying for itself just through that outside activity, end of discussion.
No. I wasn't here when the board formulated the plans for those, and wasn't here when most of it was built. Certainly the Fine Arts Center I wasn't here for.
Yeah.
They were not built to be standalone facilities, to be supported
But
by
if
outside
you say
entities.
they're booked out,
Rentals.
that's what I'm referring to. Those rentals come along with payments of rental.
Yeah, but you can't rent it enough when you have class in it all day long, like the Fine Arts Center.
It's used more as an accommodation for the community, just like I think it's the Kiwanis actually use the middle school cafeteria to hold an event every year, do a pancake breakfast.
Yeah.
The whole system, you can request to use, if it's available for a small fee, you can use the facility. It's to help with janitors, cleanup, you know, help with the lights, but it's not set up to make money off of as it is to be an accommodation for the community.
Thank you.
Does that revenue come into other local revenue? Is that where that revenue would be booked?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Tiverton?
I don't know how many children in the junior high are in the ag program, but I have heard from one kid that's in the high school program that there are 3 classes of ag students, and of the 4 periods, and that when they go to the ag center, which he told me was very infrequently, that mainly what they do is clean up down there, and that for their 1.5-hour period, they drive in the bus down there, they spend their hour or whatever, and then drive back. Yeah, you know, what a terrific waste of time to go somewhere. I don't know what you can do, how much you can accomplish in an hour by the time you herd everybody up and get them on the bus and drive them down there and, you know, go through the whole routine again. You know, so, but he's in the ag program, and he said very infrequently he goes to the ag center. So that's just one person's report.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions, neither one involved discussion. What % of the salary budget goes to administration?
That is. We can get that to you.
We could find
We'd have to
that.
break that out, yeah.
All right. The other question I had pertains to eSplost. eSplost has allowed us to create a relatively large infrastructure. I'm concerned about down years maintenance and upkeep. Do you have a contingency plan should eSplost not go through next time? Now, wait a minute. It's not taxes, not increasing property taxes.
No, but that's one of the options.
That's tar and feathers, okay?
One of the options,
So
though.
you do have a contingency plan
We
for
would,
that?
we would cease all the projects that are being done with that, period. And
Okay.
put a stop to that list.
Thank you.
There would be
Just
no
a
way to
follow-up
do it.
question on that. Does eSplost fund maintenance?
No, ma'am.
So we would simply stop adding to the infrastructure. But the maintenance would be all of the, and operating costs, I would assume, are all cleaning and the light fixtures and furniture and equipment, cleaning and heating and air conditioning maintenance and all those
But
kinds of
now,
things.
major renovations like, project just completed of air conditioning the elementary school gym. Those are eSplosh projects.
It didn't have air conditioning and we
That's
added
correct.
air conditioning.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, but that, so, yeah, that would be
The
a,
bigger
capital.
maintenance projects would be driven by eSplosh, but the day-to-day maintenance and upkeep is not. As are, some bus purchases and technology purchases are eSplosh.
our eSplosh as well.
State does not send us any bus replacement money anymore. We get half of the cost of one regular school bus from the state.
I thought the governor's budget had a lot of money in it for school buses this year.
It does,
For
but
next
once you
year.
divide it among all the systems in the state,
Right.
we end up with $53,000, which is half a bus. They cost $100,000.
From a technology perspective, are those oftentimes dealt with by grants or by partnership with businesses? To be, you know, Apple or Microsoft, in order to be able to help schools extend life of and I guess, bring in new technology to the schools?
You have grants that will sometimes establish technology initiatives for you. The longest period of time that those grants usually last for is 5 years, but more commonly 3 years. After that 3-year funding period is over with, either from the feds or the state, or even industry for that matter, whatever period of time that your grant runs, once that's over with, then there's an expectation that if that initiative is to continue, it gets moved over to the local general fund, as does the replacement costs and repair and maintenance.
Now, have we moved to all technology versus hardcover textbooks, hard and soft cover textbooks? Or do we have a blend still of
We have a
text
blend.
and, okay, we're not 100% paperless, I guess, if you will. And is it more middle school, high school that has gone to the technology, or is it more the
I would say
elementary school?
middle and high have done a better job of that, especially high school. And I can only say that because I've got a 10th grade daughter,
So-
and she does a tremendous amount of her stuff.
So do we have, I guess each year, would our 2018 plan have a plan, part of the technology plan that we execute on an ongoing basis, that we, through a rolling plan, do our replacements and upgrades and what have you?
Yes, ma'am, we have to have a system technology plan, that's required by the state.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so that will end our discussion and public input and recommendations. If there's no further comment, I will make the motion. We adjourn this meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, and second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much for coming and for your input. And for the people that wanted a response as far as where Dr. Rayfield had said that he would, if you'll leave your email address, he can email that to you as much as we can. Thank you.
Dr. Rick,
Just leave it.
just a clarification, the meeting following this one at 5 o'clock is an open meeting?
Yes, it's a board training session.
They're lots of fun.